Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar, EB-5 Investor Due Diligence, Finding the Right Project for Immigration Success. I'm Brenna Cahill, the Marketing Events Manager at JTC. A few housekeeping items before we start our webinar today. To submit a question for our speakers, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. We are recording this webinar and we'll send a follow-up email with a link to access the recording next week. A legal disclaimer. This presentation is intended to provide general information about EB-5 and does not constitute as an offer to sell, as a solicitation of an offer to buy, or as a recommendation of any security or investment product. Nothing in this presentation is intended to provide tax, legal, or investment advice and should not be construed as a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any investment or security, or to engage in any investment strategy or transaction. Viewers should consult their business advisor, attorney, or tax and accounting advisor regarding their specific business, legal, or tax situation. I'm now pleased to introduce our moderator for today's webinar, Christine Chen, COO of CanAm Enterprises. I will now pass it over to Christine.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Brenna. As she said, I'm Christine Chen, Chief Operating Officer at CanAm Enterprises. I am delighted to welcome our amazing panel of speakers and all of you to today's webinar on EB-5 Investor Due Diligence. Just to give you a little background, CanAm and JTC partnered to create a white paper with the same title as this webinar, EB-5 Investor Due Diligence. CanAm is an EB-5 regional center operator with more than 20 years experience in EB-5. We have raised more than $3.5 billion in EB-5 capital for almost 75 projects at this point, and have had $2.5 billion repaid to date. JTC, which has been a great partner for us and a great entity in general in EB-5, has been in the industry since 2009. Built on a foundation of security, transparency, and compliance, with a focus on best practices in the nuanced markets that they're in, JTC is a global fund administrator with expertise around the world and intentional growth in the US over the last 4 years. The white paper, which started all of this, was certainly a labor of love for, I think, all of us at CanAm and JTC, and hopefully all our contributors. We really wanted to think about what kinds of discussions that we've been having, what should be shared with prospective investors, and who were the best people to tell it. We know that there is a lot out there in terms of EB-5 101 and checklists that, to be honest, tend to sometimes oversimplify what can be a very important investment decision, and really a decision for planning your lives. And our goal as a group was to contribute a discussion, knowing that our EB-5 investors are sophisticated and savvy, to elevate the discussion to that level. So I know everyone here today is bringing their expertise and is looking forward to having, a nuanced discussion about, what we all face on a day-to-day basis when we're looking at the business that we're in, and what it means to do EB-5 due diligence at the level that our investors are doing. I want to take a few minutes to introduce our outstanding panel of experts today. As I said, each bring actually deep expertise in their respective fields, and we're just thrilled to have this group be part of the white paper that we produced, and then be able to speak live here today. I know together we are all really committed to providing investors with the kind of information they need to make sound decisions, and we really are hopeful that this discussion today will shed light on key considerations when evaluating an EB-5 investment opportunity. First, we have Jill Jones. Jill and I have worked together for a long time, so it's great to be able to be together again today. She is General Counsel, Institutional Client Services in the United States at JTC, with over 20 years of corporate and compliance experience and direct involvement in over 600 EB-5 development projects. Jill is highly regarded for her ability to structure subscription escrows efficiently and navigate the complexities of EB-5 financial administration. I will say that based on personal experience, Jill is an amazing problem solver in what can be a very thorny business. So we're all very grateful for having worked with her and to the JTC team over the years.
Thank you,
Next,
Christine.
next, we welcome Sebastian Stubbe, Managing Director and CEO of Pine State Regional Center. With over 25 years in investment banking and alternative investments, Sebastian has extensive experience in managing investment portfolios and structuring capital solutions. He has been a key voice in immigration and investment conferences worldwide. And he and I have walked many, many conference halls together talking about, what we can be doing better in EB-5. So it's wonderful to have you here today.
Thanks, Christine. Great to be here.
Joining us as well is Irina Rostova, founder of EB5support.com, an award-winning EB-5 immigration attorney and FINRA registered investment broker. Irina has built a platform that guides investors through project selection and due diligence, ensuring that they make informed choices in the EB-5 process. So thank you, Irina, for joining us. It's always great to be able to work with you. We are also pleased to have our very own, CanAm's very own Walter Ginden. He is General Counsel at CanAm Enterprises. Walter leads CanAm's legal team, overseeing all our EB-5 and corporate legal matters. His expertise in immigration law and investment structures really provides invaluable insights for both investors and industry professionals. I will say that Walter probably has seen it all in terms of all the types of projects that CanAm has encountered, whether we do them or not. So looking forward to having his contribution to the discussion today.
Thanks, Christine.
Next, we have Suzanne Litzicki, which if you don't know, you've probably been living under a rock. President of Lucid Professional Writing, Suzanne has spent over a decade specializing in business plans for immigration purposes, working with investors and developers to structure compelling and compliant EB-5 documentation. She is also the author of one of the most respected blogs in the industry, offering in-depth analysis of EB-5 policies and trends. I know that we certainly visit your blog often to see deeper discussions of what we are all hearing and discussing internally. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
And finally, last but not least, we are joined by Joey Barnett, partner at WR Immigration. Joey is a seasoned EB-5 attorney with deep expertise in regional center compliance, investor petitions, and business immigration law. He is an active leader in the EB-5 space, serving on AILA's EB-5 committee and IIUSA's editorial board. He has been recognized among the top attorneys in the field, including over the past weekend. Congratulations again, Joey. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
We look forward to an engaging discussion ahead. I do encourage you to submit questions throughout the session. Let's get started. Okay. Let's get started with our first polling question. Let's find out who's here. So what is your involvement in the EB-5 industry? There is obviously a button on the screen for you to pick one of the choices. I am a regional center. I am a developer with an affiliated regional center. I am an EB-5 service provider. I am an investor or other. I'm actually thinking, since we can't vote, what the composition of our group here today is. And we actually have a decent, we've got a couple regional centers. We have quite a few service providers, but in different spaces. We have to work a little harder to get the rest of the options on our next panel, make it even bigger and better. But hopefully everyone can let us know. It definitely helps shape the discussion we have as we are having it. So if you let us know, we'd be happy to answer those questions. Thank you very much. There is, and it represents the group that's here today. 47% EB-5 service providers, which I think is the majority of our group here today. Regional centers second, the 10% investors and other, and the 7% being a developer with an affiliated regional center. So, thank you. We will keep that in mind as we go through our conversation today. So let's start where we always start, which is to begin with a with an overview of the EB-5 program with respect to immigration and investment requirements. For that, I'll ask Joey and Suzanne to kind of walk us through. There is kind of the mandatory requirements of the program, but there's the nuances of what it means to meet those requirements and what those really mean. So Joey, maybe you can start with just walking us through the basics to frame our conversation today.
Sure. Absolutely. And thank you, Christine. And thank you to CanAm and JDC for inviting us to speak and write in the white paper, which is an amazing resource. And I send it out to everybody because it really does do a great job of giving context to the discussions that I have with EB-5 investors every single day, the types of considerations that you want to be factoring into your decision making when looking at the different EB-5 projects are on the market. So I think it's absolutely a worthwhile read. And Suzanne's blog is required reading as far as I'm concerned. So it's great to be speaking with her about the EB-5 program, which, you know, to many immigrant investors, it's a green card program because it's the way that you get your green card. It's the way for you and your family to remain in the United States forever. But it's also a job creation program and an investment program. And so all of those have to be worked through when you're making your decision. And they all need to kind of coalesce together to make sure that you get your final permanent green card. You need to make sure that the jobs are created. You also want to make sure that you are in a project where you are in a good position to get your money back. Because something I say to all immigrant investors is that there's no requirement to get your money back in EB-5. That is not a legal requirement. It is possible for you to get your full immigration benefit, but not get your money. And so when you're doing your due diligence, this is the important thing. Yeah, there's the immigration due diligence, and then there's the investment due diligence. And so that's why I think this webinar is so important because it brings it all together. With EB-5, just the basics are, it's a green card for you, for your spouse, for any unmarried children under the age of 21, based on your investment of lawfully obtained capital into a U.S. company that creates jobs for U.S. workers. That's the 30,000-foot eligibility requirement for EB-5. And as Christine said, there's a lot of nuances for every single one of those requirements. I'm not going to get into source of funds in this discussion. That has its own
Yes.
webinar length, and we're not going to talk about it other than to say that you got to speak with an immigration attorney to handle that side of things because USCIS is really picky on it. What we're going to be talking about today is more project related stuff. And what's great about EB-5 is that you really can play a pretty passive role as it relates to many of the immigration requirements. And it's based about the job creation and the project that you invest. And that's why I say that picking a good project is the most important aspect of EB-5. It's more important than the immigration attorney that you work with. It's more important than, you know, where the project is located. It's about the job creation, right? And that's what's going to get you the green card. I'm going to maybe pause and let Suzanne dive in to see if there's anything she wants to piggyback off of here.
I think you gave a good overview, and one thing that I find myself often saying to people, which encapsulates a lot of what you said, is just remember EB-5 is not buying a green card. And I think a lot of the misconceptions come with kind of thinking of it in terms of buying a green card. Like, I need to just put this certain amount of money aside for 2 years, and then I'm going to get the green card and my money back. And that's not how EB-5 works. It is a real investment separate from the issue of qualifying for a green card. And thinking about the immigration requirements to some extent separately from the issues on the investment side. So you mentioned as far as the immigration service is concerned, they don't have a rule that you need to get your money back or how profitable it needs to be. They have a rule, you need to have a real investment that has to create jobs. And so you want to think separately, is this a real investment? Is this really going to create jobs? And then on the other side, does this project have the stability and the potential that I can anticipate an exit strategy that is going to work for me on the investment side?
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point. And, you know, when we're talking about the immigration process for immigrant investors, when you file your I-526E, which is that EB-5 petition, you are pretty much demonstrating at that point that your money is lawfully obtained and that you've invested or are actively in the process of investing lawfully obtained capital into a project that has already filed a Form I-956F, which is a regional center project approval application. That's what's going to get you your conditional green card. Are your source of funds clean? But what gets you the full immigration benefit is the job creation of the project that you're investing in and making sure that your money is at risk for long enough. And so, there are different phases to it and different aspects that sort of influence how USCIS processes these cases. Whether it's rural or high unemployment, that's a big thing that people talk about. What are the differences there? Rural in the RIA is eligible for what they call priority processing, and we have seen USCIS to date adjudicate those a bit quicker than high unemployment area. Not, I wouldn't say like significantly quicker, but there is a difference just based on the data that we're seeing. And then there's also twice as many visa numbers for rural as there is for high unemployment. And that is another immigration aspect that people are taking into consideration, in particular, Chinese and Indian nationals who would be subject to the backlog in the unreserved EB-5 visa category. And so that's sort of another element that I think Suzanne does a great job of writing about and trying to give some visibility into wait times. And that's part of what a lot of folks who are in the United States stuck in other green card backlogs, they're looking at wait times. Like, is it worthwhile for me to invest all this money if I'm going to be getting a green card in 20 years? Well, no, it doesn't make sense to do that, right? Even, so it's part of your EB-2 priority date, at least for folks inside of the United States, and that part of it as well. So, there are a lot of things that you do need to be considering, and I hope that's at least a good start to this conversation for EB-5.
And I think, Joey, kind of with regard to that, to your point, there is a lot of discussion. The new version of the EB-5 program that was legislated in 2022 has obviously created these new questions, whether you go in the rural category, the high unemployment, implications of that. And in terms of I love how you divide between this immigration due diligence, job creation due diligence, and investment due diligence. I think in terms of that, there is a lot of discussion out there, and it's almost a little overwhelming. I really think that I think it's such a personal conversation to have with your immigration attorney. What is your goal for being in the United States? What are your plans? It shouldn't just be everyone's rushing to one category. What am I missing out on? And I think there is a lot of that going on. So with respect to this particular immigration due diligence process that you've been discussing, I do think it's so important to have that kind of conversation with your immigration attorney to really think and talk about your personal circumstances, because that's really going to dictate, what's going to work, where you are now, where you want to be in a year, what are your plans for your children, what is applicable to you is just not going to be applicable to someone else who posted on our blog or wrote somewhere else. So